by the Nile River, living in luxury, enjoying freedom, justice, and equality. We wore silken robes and slippers of gold. We were the wealthiest and the wisest people, I'm told. Now we are the poorest of the poor. Nobody wants us at their door. So my friend, it's easy to tell, white man heaven is a black man hell.
So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that Master Farad Muhammad said 6 words to us, and these were the 6 most powerful words that he spoke. He said, accept your own and be yourself. Accept your own. The Caucasians who brought our fathers into slavery desired to take us away from our own people, our own culture, our own religion, our own God, our own language. So we have grown up in America away from our own mind, away from our own selves, and so we have been actually indoctrinated with an alien mentality.
10,000 fearless men. Because we're going to have to challenge the things that are destroying our community. So this ain't no punk time. This ain't no temple time, mosque time, or church time. All the singing and shouting and preaching is over. Get in them streets now. Block by block. We're going to have to clean it up. The airwaves is not enough. The television screen is not enough. You got to put boots on the ground who are trained and are willing to make the sacrifice of life itself to see our community made a decent place to live.
Attention. Drill.
Soldiering is a part of the Nation of Islam, and it readies all of us to obey the commands of God. Now some will ask, well, why military drill? Because this is what produces the camaraderie.
Facebook and Instagram thought that they could ban the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
But in reality, they can't, because he already lives in us and millions of others.
قل أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
In the name of Allah, Master Farad Muhammad, the one true and living God to whom praise is due forever, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is his messenger. Peace, family, and welcome back to another great episode of WHID-FM. WHID-FM is your personal platform for those of us striving to follow the life-giving and life-saving teachings of the most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as given to us by his premier pupil, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, gathered right here in this virtual meeting place to answer that most critical question of what has Islam done for me. It is Sunday, May 26th, and at this time we're going to turn it over to that dynamic co-host of WHID-FM, our sister Janine Muhammad, who is a superstar student here in the ministry at Muhammad Mosque No. 6 under the leadership of our beloved brother, Imam Abdul Salam Muhammad. Sister Janine.
Assalamu alaikum, family, and thank you for joining us again for another episode of WHID-FM, What Has Islam Done for Me? We thank you for tuning in each and every week to hear the various stories from our guests about what Islam has done and continuing to do for them. I'm going to introduce our guest for tonight, which is Brother Malik Muhammad. Brother Malik Muhammad Jr. is a 27-year-old registered member of the WHID study group in the Nation of Islam. He raised his hand and accepted his own at 16 years of age and has been an active member of the Nation of Islam ever since. Brother Malik is the eldest child of Brother Malik Muhammad Sr. and Sister Cherie Muhammad. Brother Malik and Sister Cherie have been married for 28 years and have 7 children. All of these children that are of age have raised their hand and have accepted the teachings and are also active in their nation. Due to the hard work, dedication, and sacrifice of his parents, Brother Malik Jr. graduated high school at 13 years of age and attained his degree in biology with the primary focus of being on biomedical research. Brother Malik Jr. currently serves as a student FOI coordinator for the WHID study group and have been striving to use the knowledge and skills that he has been blessed to acquire to help his nation and help his people. So at this time, we'd like to welcome Brother Malik on the show tonight. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, ma'am. How are you doing?
Doing good, praise be to Allah. And I'm going to get us started off with our first round of questions. Now, when we talk to our guests, we like to get a background. And your story is quite interesting, being as though you raised your hand and accepted the teachings at a young age. So some may say our youth are lost. They're not looking for spiritual advancement. So can you tell us what made you raise your hand and accept the teachings at a young age?
Yes, ma'am. Excellent question. First of all, thank you and everyone that is hosting this very, very prestigious podcast show for allowing me to be on as a guest. I'll get right into it. So what made me raise my hand at a young age was the example of the two people that you mentioned, my parents, Brother Malik and Sister Cherie Muhammad. So my parents, when they were married, they knew that they wanted to have a big family. And my father, being the man that he is, and my mother being the woman that she is, they did not want to give birth to and raise children of Muslims. They wanted to give birth and raise Muslim children. So the activity and the actions that they did from before we were born, me being the oldest child, all the way down to the last child being born, have been proactively natured steps, that they have taken following the teachings of the most Honorable Elijah Muhammad as taught to us by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to ensure that they produce that Muslim children. So one of the things that my parents did, my father asked my mother before, I believe it was before she was pregnant with me. She might have been pregnant with me already, but he asked her if she would be willing to stay at home and homeschool the children. So my father, being an educator at that time, could already see firsthand the absolute slaughter of the children, not just in the Nation of Islam, but just children in general that go to these schooling systems. So he asked my mother if she would be willing to stay at home and homeschool the children while allowing him to do his part in going out and providing and maintaining and protecting our family. So he asked her that, and by Allah's grace, she made the decision to do just that. So none of my siblings, including myself, ever went to a public school. We were all homeschooled. So that first part in and of itself was a very, very impactful part of our development as young Muslims, because we're already stepping into an environment, a world that is contrary to the world that we're in. So we're homeschooled. We still got to do, fun activities, had trips. We had everything that we would normally do at a regular school, but at home. We had uniforms. We had a schedule. It was very organized. It wasn't just like a willy-nilly type of, we'll do it when we feel like it type of thing. No, it was structured like school, but it was at home. Another thing that my parents did as an example that helped us, and myself especially, to pretty much, I don't want to say ensure that we would join, because it actually did. But my father also shared that he did not want any of his children to have to raise their hand to write down or sign a job application to work for the white man. He wanted to create something that his children could walk into that would act as an additional layer that would give us the best opportunity to be active, registered Muslims in the Nation of Islam without having to clock in and work for the white man. And by Allah's grace, with the help of my mother and with the help of Allah, he was able to do just that. So every child, including myself, never had to go and sign a job application. We all have the opportunity and work with our family company. And so there's a lot of different things that they did in addition to that helped us and myself to raise our hands right at 16. I like to tell people when they ask me that question, I always say, my parents don't have any gap year babies. In academics, they say, gap years when you take that year off, right? Maybe 2, to kind of figure out what you want to do if you're going from grad school to undergrad school to grad, or high school to college, whatever the case may be. By Allah's grace, they don't have any gap year babies. We at 16 raised our hand, accepted the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as taught to us by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, right when we were ready at 16. And the biggest thing was their example. They didn't just talk Islam. They didn't just say, read Message to the Black Man. They didn't just say, read the Supreme Wisdom. They actually strove hard to live it, made sacrifices to live it. And we actually had real life examples that we could touch, that we could come home and talk to and ask questions. So that helped us to fight the devil within, that battle within self, in addition to the outside environment, because we had an environment that was conducive to creating and generating Muslims. I can think about it as gardening as well, to end my point. When you want to produce a certain seed, a certain crop, you have to have a certain type of environment for that seed or crop to grow. You can't grow a watermelon seed like you would grow a sunflower seed. So if you want to produce a Muslim child and not a child of a Muslim, you have to take certain steps to ensure that the environment will create that. So in order to do that, the environment that's going to produce a Muslim child can't look like the environment of the world. It can't look like the environment that is the norm, that's acceptable, that's deemed as, appropriate, or no. It has to look different, because we already know that this world is not Allah's world. This is Satan's world right now. So if you want to produce little gods, which is what my parents strove to do, they set up an environment that was conducive to producing that. And because of that, I was able to, by Allah's grace, have it on my heart to say in advance, when I turn 16, inshallah, at that time, I will be raising my hand to join the Nation of Islam. And by Allah's grace, that's exactly what I did.
All praise due to Allah. Now, speaking to your point about being homeschooled in a proper Muslim environment, this world always gives something counter to what's good for the child. So the average person may say, well, growing up in homeschool, you have no social skills. How does a child know to operate in the real world when they have to? What would you have to say to those that may say, I don't think I should homeschool my child? They won't have social skills. And when they go out into the world, they may not know how to react, or they may go crazy, so to speak, when they no longer have that leash or that proper environment around them.
Oh, excellent point. Believe it or not, dear sister, I used to hear that, and my family used to hear that a lot when we were growing up. And, just hearing when people would hear that my parents were homeschooling their children. So for someone who is having that counter argument, I would say this, especially if this is a registered believer. If we believe that we are all God's children of the Most High God, and that we can do all things through Christ that strengthens us, if we're a Christian, which we all are, then social skills is just a small aspect of the overall skills that are acquired with life. So if your concern is social skills, being able to navigate in the world with other individuals who may think differently, talk differently, have different degrees and levels of intellect, well, if you're being proactively minded, proactively natured and thought, you create opportunities for your children to be social. And I'll use my family as a personal example. So as you stated in my bio, dear sister, I have six siblings. There's 7 of us total. So for me, social skills wasn't a problem because it was a lot of us. It was a lot of us. So social skills was not an issue because you have these 7 different minds, 7 different beings, 7 different thought processes. It's a lot going on. But in addition to that, my parents created opportunities for us to utilize the social skills that people are, I want to say, so quick to throw that out there when it comes to homeschooling. Social skills, if you look at them from a foundational standpoint, social skills are tied into or connected to your moral compass. If you're taught a certain way to operate morally, that's going to help dictate or determine how you operate socially. So as a young Muslim child, we were taught all of the 5 pillars of Islam, how to operate and be as Muslims. So that was our moral foundation. So from that foundation, you have a certain set of social skills, like being mannerable, how you approach someone in the conversation, how you do a lot of different things. But even with just that, being creative in the sense that my father allowed for the boys, us, we played sports. When he was an educator or a teacher, we would sometimes go visit him at his school and talk to him and socialize with his class of students. Now look how creative that is. He didn't allow us to just, just go to the school and, kind of roam around. No. You all can come here and I want you to see, look at my students, interact to the students, talk to them. But he wouldn't just let it be fully social. He would always connect it back to the teachings and the principles upon which he and my mother were doing what we were doing. So we would come to the school and, we would get to socialize with his class. That's an environment that he controls. When he and my family started our tutoring company, we were some of the first tutors. Myself being the first one because, I'm the oldest. So my first student that I had was a 38-year-old college algebra student. I was 13 years old.
Wow.
That was my first tutoring student that I had from our tutoring company. So you can imagine socially, not only was that a challenge, but more for her than me, but you also have an age gap. But that wasn't an issue because of the moral and spiritual foundation being laid properly. All I did was utilize what I know of the teachings, proper handling the people, and that went smoothly. So it's not like it's something that cannot be overcome if you're being creative and proactive and have the patience to actually plan for it. Now, that's why I said in my opening statement, this wasn't just, willy-nilly, we'll do it, do we feel like doing it? No, everything was planned all the way out. Everything was planned. So for the parent or the person who have that concern about their children's social skills not developing, my challenge to you would be create little small pockets of environments where your children can develop social skills. However, you still have your hands on them in the sense that you're not giving them to the white man. You're not giving them to the devil. You're not giving them to individuals who think opposite of the direction you want your family to go. You put them in an environment where it's controlled. You can let them utilize some skills. They may get a little bump every now and then, but you bring them right back and you teach them and you keep going from there. So that would be my answer to someone who have that as a concern. And like I said, that was the most common thing that I heard growing up was the social skills, the social skills, the social skills. And I'll add this too as well, dear sister, to end my point.
Mm-hmm.
This is specifically for registered members of the Nation of Islam. Our structure that we have as members of the Nation of Islam defeats that argument like hard. It's not even a concern.
That's right.
We were going to our Friday night study groups. We went to our Sunday meetings. We went to our Wednesday night meetings. And sometimes when they allowed it, the boys, the male children, we would go to FOI class. So now not only are we engaging with our siblings, but we also get to see and interact with the believers as well. So there's a lot of different things already built into how we're taught as believers that you can use if you're being proactive to defeat the social skill development fear, I guess you could say, because it's not again, that's just such a small aspect of the entire body of what entails a human being, especially if you're trying to make them a Muslim. Because if you get that foundation set, everything else comes from there. So that would be my answer to that counter argument, counter statement, if you will, for the social skills. That's minuscule compared to various other things that they could be, lacking in or lacking development in.
All praise is due to Allah. Now, my next question before I turn it over to Brother West. So some may say you had a wonderful background. You were raised properly in a good household. So you may not be able to relate to those out in the street who had such trauma, and you're trying to pull them in the teachings. How do you maintain that balance, or how do you still remain that relatability to be able to bring our people in, even though you may have different backgrounds and may have been raised differently?
Excellent question, dear sister. Thank you. I actually was speaking to my father, and he said something similar, or gave me a point similar that I would like to use from him. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has never done some of the things that, we see our people in the streets do. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is not he was never a gangbanger. He was never a killer. He's none of that. We know him to be none of that. However, he's able to reach and impact our brothers and sisters in the hood, in the streets, that do just that. What is it about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that allows him to do that? And what can we do as his followers to do the same thing? The answer is in the character. Our character will allow us to practice what's called empathy. Empathy just means that you and I have a certain degree of understanding about whatever instance, situation, or scenario we're in. I have enough understanding to understand your side, and vice versa. So even though, yes, I didn't have the quote unquote rough childhood, I still have access to a body of knowledge in the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad that allows me to take my mind and see and understand exactly what our people are going through, why they're going through it, and also have the answer key to solve their problem. So for people that think that, maybe because you don't have that background, you may be less effective, that's not necessarily true. Now, are there certain things that people have experienced that I may not have experienced? Absolutely. 100%. However, that lack of experience doesn't make me a less effective savior to our people, not if I'm studying our people, studying the teachings, and more importantly, applying them accordingly and developing and building my character while I do it. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in a lecture, the reason why the brothers in the street with the guns and doing the drugs respect the FOI is because when they look at the FOI, they see someone that's doing something different. He said the word doing and stressed emphasis on that. The doing is is where our character development comes in. In order for something to be considered a characteristic trait, it has to be something that you're consistent in. If I tell you that, oh, I'm a truthful person, but I lie to you all the time, that's not a part of my character. I just lied to you just now. So in order for something to be considered a characteristic trait, a part of our character, it has to be something that we're consistently doing. So again, back to my parents making the decision to homeschool us. All we were practicing was Islam. There was no outside distractions that could come into that base, which the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us is the household, that would distract us from practicing Islam, developing the character, working on that. So where now, as a 27-year-old young man, young FOI, I can go to the brother in the hood and relate well to him, speak well to him, listen to his problems, and know which solutions to offer based on what he tells me, not because I was a former gang member, not because I was a former a shooter or nothing like that, but I have the knowledge and the answer key that I can relate and listen to that young brother, listen to that sister, and say, oh, my brother, my sister, I understand exactly what you're talking about. Here's where I think you should. I recommend this page. Do you see this page 19 in the Final Call newspaper? Check that out. You see this How to Eat to Live? Check that out. So that would be my response to that statement, dear sister, is it's the character and the application of what we learn that gives us I don't want to say, it's kind of like closing the gap, I guess you could say. Again, that doesn't mean you have to be an experienced person. No, it just means you have enough understanding to empathize with our people and guide them and take their hand and put their hand in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's hand. And that's all we're supposed to do anyway. So now the brother who was a former gang member, street thug, whatever the case may be, he can relate to him on a whole nother level. But again, that doesn't make his impact as a savior any less or more than mine. It's about the application and the character behind that individual.
Oh, praise due to Allah. Beautiful response. Beautiful. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Brother West, who has some questions for you as well, Brother West.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. Assalamu alaikum, family.
Walaikum salam.
Walaikum salam, sir.
Yes, sir. So, Brother Malik, I know earlier you mentioned that you accepted the teachings in the early 2000s at the young age of 16. All praises due to Allah. So,
yes,
although that was around 10 years ago now, and times have changed as far as the rise of social media, things like that, I wanted to know if you can explain what you would say to today's teenagers to inspire them to also accept the teachings for themselves.
Excellent question. To the young teenagers, whether you are a nation baby, meaning you were born in the nation, or you are in the world, not a part of the Nation of Islam, we are taught that we are to accept our own and be ourselves. In today's day and age, especially with social media, we have the ability to be so many other people than ourselves. Then we have so many different directions that we can go to do that. My answer to that question, Brother West, I'm going to use our beloved minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We have to start loving ourselves more. The more that we grow in love with ourselves, the more that we grow in love with the Creator, the God that made us, and the easier it is to make the decision to do better for self. It's the lack of love of self that makes things like social media, YouTube, various social media platforms and sites that make them so powerful, because it's pulling on something that if it's not set in stone, if it's not solidified, the pull is so great, it can take your mind away from the aim and purpose that Master Father Muhammad came to give us, which was to become little gods. So for my young brothers and sisters who are out there, please grow more in love with yourself. Now, how do I do that, Brother Malik Muhammad Jr.? You saying that sounds nice, but I mean, how do I grow more in love with myself? Well, first of all, you got to know who you are. Whether you're a Christian, Muslim, whatever religion you are, find out who you are. Now, we already know as believers in the Nation of Islam that everybody by nature is a Muslim, but let's just move the titles out the way, because we may have some viewers who are not that, and I don't want to lose you and think that this is, if you're not in the Nation of Islam, this isn't for you. No, this is very much so for you. Once you have a knowledge of yourself and you grow more in love with yourself, you can start applying things in your life to improve on yourself. Self-improvement also is connected to your degree of love for yourself. So with the social media, I know it sounds hard, and I know for some it may seem impossible, but let's start with filtering what it is that we're feeding ourselves mentally, because we know that thoughts have weight. So what thoughts are we thinking when we're on social media? Are we comparing ourselves? If so, why are we doing that? Let's start self-evaluating, and from there, start to make adjustments and apply certain things that will allow us to be in the best position to love ourselves. And I'm going to, again, go back to my parents and their tremendous sacrifice and wise decision in keeping us at home, in a sense, with homeschooling us. Now, back then, we didn't have social media like that. It kind of came later on, later on down the line. But even still, being able to have an environment where that kind of behavior and that kind of filtration is present is so critically important. And I'm ending it like that because I know that a lot of our young people don't have that kind of environment. And I will say this to end. Just because you don't have that environment, my young brother and sister, does not mean that you can't be the first one to create one. Don't allow the fact that you may not have access to that environment to be an excuse for not making the decision now to do so for yourself now and for the children that are coming after you. The purpose of that is so that you put yourself in a better position to learn, grow, further in love with yourself. And then the ones that come after you, if we do our job right as parents, can take up where you left off and keep the ball rolling. But it's going to start off with self. That's why the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan tells us, and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad tells us that Friday night study group self-improvement is the most important meeting, because that's where everything starts. So that would be my recommendation and my answer to the young brothers and sisters.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And I know earlier you spoke on your parents and how they made that decision to raise you all at home and especially teach you all in a more homeschool environment. And I did a little bit of research and I saw that you take from your father a lot and that he played a great influence in your life. So I wanted to know if you can share what it was like growing up with those positive examples of believing parents that ultimately inspired all 8 of you, or all 7 of you, to join the Nation of Islam later.
Yes, sir. Excellent question, Brother West. There's a lot. I could spend my entire time on this show talking about what that was like and the importance in what my parents, Brother Malik and Sister Sharif Muhammad, did, and not just homeschooling, but everything else in between. So I will start off with my father, Brother Malik, and then go over to my mother, Sister Sharif. So growing up with my father, he, like I said, is a proactively minded man. He is a man's man. Why am I saying a man's man? Because in today's time of all these alphabet people, it's not a lot of those left. So that's my father. My father, since he was a child, has always been practicing or looking towards how he can better himself. Now, he didn't know this at the time, but as a young Muslim, how he can lead his family to being an example, the example, what Master Father Muhammad came to make us, which is gods, little gods with a little g. So having that mindset, he planned out the entire pathway for not himself, but for our entire family. And he did it following the three, I don't want to say principles, but the 3 components that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, and in the order that he gave us, which is God first, family second, nation third. Not God, skip family and nation. God first, family second, and nation third. So in following that, he not only made the decision to, homeschool us and put certain things in place, but even his day-to-day activities with us. He was always teaching us Islam, and we didn't know what he was doing. That's how intelligent, how wise, and how creative, and how cold, for lack of better words, that he was. I'll never forget when I was younger. I want to say I was maybe around 8, 9. He would bring his checks home from teaching, and we would meet him at the door. He would sit us down in the dining room, and he would show us his checks that he got from teaching. And he would ask this question. He would say, "Sons, who's the man of this house?" And naturally, as his sons, as his children, we saying, you dad, you're the man of the house. And he would just say, "No, sir, not yet." And he would point to the check, and he said, "You see that name right there? That name right there, right now, that's not my name. This is another man's name. So for right now, while this man's name is on this check, he runs this house. Because if he decides he doesn't need me anymore, that's going to impact my ability to provide, maintain, and protect for your mama and your siblings. So that right now, he's the man of the house." But he would always end it like this. "But don't worry. One day it's going to be our name right there, and I will be the man of the house. But right now, it's not there yet." So fast forward. Now, mind you, he just dropped that jewel on us at 8 and 9. Fast forward, and by Allah's grace, he stepped out on faith, started his our family company, and he brought home that first check. And he asked us, "You remember when I would show you all the checks and ask you who the man of the house?" And of course, we like, "Yes, sir, I remember." And he showed us the check, and by Allah's grace, it was his name there and the company name there. And he said, "I told you, I'm the man of the house now." So even small things like that impacted us in such a way that we were always looking through a lens that was different. Not that it was better than anyone else's lens, but it was always different in the sense that he was feeding us knowledge and information in a practical way that applied to our lives, but it was always Islam, always Islam. When we would watch movies with him, he was teaching us Islam. When we're driving down to the store, and he would point to a tree and be teaching us on Islam, but he did it in a manner that was creative and fun and energetic. He didn't bore us like that. And that's a skill when it comes to parenting. A lot of us try to force Islam and force things on our children, not knowing that when you force someone to do something, the moment they realize that they have free will, that force is actually going to be the force that pushed them away, not bring them closer. So the skill when it comes to parenting is, how do you put something into a child's mind, but give it to them in a way where they organically go from just doing it because you say it to doing it because they actually love to do it. And my father mastered that 110,000%. How can you say that, Brother Malik Muhammad Jr.? Like the sister mentioned in my bio, every child, by Allah's grace, that is of age, meaning 16 when you can raise your hand, has raised their hand and are active in the Nation of Islam, not by force, not because dad said do it, not because mama said do it, no, but because those two together mastered the ability to input that teaching in us so elegantly, so carefully, where we organically grew in love with it, and we couldn't wait to that's what we gonna do. So that's my father, just to summarize it up. It's a lot of points in there, but I don't want to take too much time. My mother was the same. My mother was at home with us while my father was out working. Now, I want to balance this out because I don't want anybody on this show to think that my father was, again, all work. I told you the order: God, family, nation. So my father was out selling Final Call newspapers. My father was holding posts. My father was, doing the things that FOI are supposed to do. So my mother being at home, not only did she just teach us, our math, our reading, our Islamic studies, but she connected the teachings that we were being taught to the activity that we were doing as a family, especially the activities that my father was doing as an FOI. So she would do things like drive us to where my father was on the block or going door to door and point and let us see him doing it. and explaining to us, look, this is what your father is doing. Remember when the minister said this, and this? Here you go. That's what your dad is doing right here. Sometimes my dad wouldn't, he was working so much because he was the sole provider. When he would go to work, we would be asleep. When he came back, we would be asleep. So she would make sure that we understood what was going on. We would go to pick him up. There was so many different things that my mother did that demonstrated the teachings at work. And I know that as a young developing Muslim, nothing is better, nothing is more sound in strengthening your faith by seeing the two people that God gave you in his stead doing what they're showing you. Not just telling you, not just making you sit and listen to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and quote, not just learning the lessons and quoting, but you actually see them doing it, and you see them creating a space for you to walk into to take what they've already done and go further than you. The last point I'll make on the both of my parents is they would also make tremendous sacrifices to ensure, once again, that we had the proper environment. So by Allah's grace, I'm 27 years old. I have been to all the Savior's Days. Especially primarily the ones when I was younger, before I was an adult, because obviously as you get older as an adult, that you get more responsibility. But we never missed a Savior's Day. There never was a Savior's Day where my father went and my mother stayed, or my mother and father went and we stayed. No, we want to raise Muslim children. We're going to sacrifice. We're going to plan a year ahead. We're going to do what we got to do. My father doing things in addition to being a teacher, going and selling fruit, all of that, making sacrifices to ensure that all we knew and saw was Islam. So that mindset and their willingness to sacrifice, they could have took that money and went on a couple's vacation. They got 7 children. If anybody deserve a couple's vacation, it's 2 parents working with 7 children. But they didn't do that. Their primary focus was, how do we fulfill our duty to Allah and do justice by these babies and ensure that we give them the greatest opportunity to be reflections of the little gods that Master Father Muhammad came to make us. And we're already taught that. You want to know to measure the works of a man? We're taught that you move the man out the way. You look at his wife and his children, not what job he has, not what role he has at work, not how much money he bringing in. No, you are a registered brother. You are a FOI. Okay, all praise is due to Allah. Step to the side, soldier. Let me look at your wife and your children. Let me look at what they're doing. What did you do with that woman I blessed you with? What did you do with those babies I blessed you with? Same thing with the woman. What did you do with those children that I blessed you with? How did you take care of and help that man that I gave you? That was their whole mindset. But again, it did it in a way that it was every memory that we have of them in that setting is fun. Even in the instances where we might have made a mistake, the lesson was always taught in a way where we could apply it like that. It wasn't just theoretical. It was always application. So I apologize if I went a little too far along, but I told you that right there, I could spend this entire show just highlighting the things that they did strategically to ensure that we had an environment to produce Muslims, an environment that would be conducive to us growing in love with the teachings, but also a family fun environment and not some military boot camp. Even though it was organized, though, don't get me wrong, it was organized, it was structured, but it wasn't like a sergeant boot camp that you see on the television shows and things like that. So that would be my response to that question, Brother West. Thank you for that.
Yes, sir, and thank you for your wonderful response. Our audience is definitely loving it. Yes, sir. So to shift gears a little bit, after your formative years, I know you became a member of the Nation of Islam on your own, and you are now a member of the Waxahachie, Texas study group, which has been praised for its hard-working, newly registered FOI and MGT. So I wanted to know if you can just share what motivates you to do all the work in your community. And I believe you all did a recent giveaway for Savior's Day, if you wanted to speak on that as well.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you. So I want to start off to answer that question, if I may, by starting off with the history of Waxahachie Study Group. So Waxahachie Study Group was started by our student study group coordinator, Brother Malik Muhammad, who's also my father. So he started the study group with the mindset of going to an area where there was no mosque or study group, where their believers are all brand new, and establish, create a study group that will inshallah grow into a mosque. So in doing that, he took all of the, the policies, protocols, procedures, everything that he needed to do, of course, with the support of my mother and our family. And by Allah's grace, Waxahachie Study Group was born. From there, you had the believers start to come in. And like I said, the believers are all newly registered believers. So our city is majority all newly registered believers currently. In that process, just like I shared about prior to me joining to the Nation of Islam, seeing everything, I also was able to be a part of the inception, the creation, and witnessing the growth of the study group, thanks to the hard work and sacrifice of my father, Brother Malik Muhammad Sr. So seeing him go to colleges and speak when it was very few of us in the beginning. As a matter of fact, that's how Brother Ben got to be a part of the study group. He went to a college in the area, spoke on campus, and Brother Ben was a student at that time at the college. And from there, Brother Ben asked him to be his mentor, and it grew from there. And the brother eventually joined the ranks of the Nation of Islam. So seeing all of that activity inspired me to continue to help. That's why I said the growing in love is very, very important, because when you love something, your willingness and desire to help is different than someone who's doing it because of an opportunity. All it takes is for that opportunity to go away, and all of a sudden they're not so helpful anymore. So watching the hard work of my father, and also watching the man that he keeps his eye on, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, continue to do what he does. There are so many different aspects or avenues of inspiration that I can pull from, Brother West, but being able to, again, have somebody that close to you, such as having my study group coordinator that close to me, who's also my father, be that close to me, to be able to ask him questions and to be able to take part in doing this mission with him. I have no choice but to just continue to work hard, because, again, that's all I've been doing and my family's been doing since we were here. So being able to do the mission that we love, being able to do it together with my father, with my brothers, to be able to line up in ranks in 4 out 5 out of the how many brothers we got there are my actual blood brothers. Like that's a beautiful and motivational feeling. So there's a lot of aspects of the study group and the mission that is motivational and inspirational to work as hard as we do. And to touch on the giveaway that we did, that was I think this last one was in celebration of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's birthday. That's just doing what we're taught to do. We're taught to hear and obey the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We want to make sure that we pass out meals to celebrate the birth of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and we did so. And not only did we do that, but again, being in the community, being able to relate to the people. We had some young brothers out there that were playing football. We had a couple other brothers take their jackets off, get on the grass with the slippery shoes, it didn't matter, and play football. So that kind of activity, that behavior always makes it fun. And again, even if you get a little tired, when you just work, like the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, when you're sick, work. When you're tired, work. When you are sad, work. Just doing the work because you have so much love and affinity for it, it just rejuvenates your spirit, and you just got to keep going back at it. So that would be my answer to that question.
Yes, sir. All praises due to Allah. And next, I wanted to know if you can speak on the studies that you've conducted with the help of your research team, such as the sodium nitrate experiment, I believe.
Yes, sir. So by Allah's grace, in 2017, during my collegiate career, I was blessed to start a research assignment, if you will, where we were investigating the behaviors of a common preservative in processed meats, packaged meats, known as sodium nitrate. The idea came from, once again, me striving to use my specific gift, skills, and talent, which was science and mathematics. Those have been my favorites since I was a little child. to but to further show and demonstrate the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad to be true as we all know it to be. So my original research proposal was going to have something to do with the Navy beam, but my advisor at the time told me that they did not have the funds to do so. So when you're doing research and writing a research proposal, it has to go through a whole approval process, and that includes budget. So she scratched that idea. So I was like, okay, let me go back to my list, because I had a long list of research that I wanted to do. And the sodium nitrate experiment was one of them. And I was sitting down, going through it, writing it up. I had a brother with me. His name is Brother Warren, who by Allah's grace, just to throw it in there, he is currently in the processing class. He's also, inshallah, will be a registered member of the Nation of Islam very, very soon. So he's seen all of the, all of the science part of my journey, but that got approved. And basically, Brother West, just to summarize what that research shows, we wanted to investigate how sodium nitrate impacts the gut bacteria or the gut microbiome in the body. So every human being has a certain gut microbiome composition, and it's unique to that person. So sodium nitrate is a preservative that is used in most packaged meats as a preservative. It's what keeps it looking nice and colorful when you go to the market, and that's what allows you don't see a lot of bacteria growing on it and it looks nasty and all that. They utilize sodium nitrate. So we wanted to investigate that, and we did the study in a manner in which, because we can't use human bodies, so we did an in vitro study, meaning it's outside of the body. And what we found after a 2-year research study, it took 2 years. So we started in 2017, it ended and was finalized and published in 2019, was that the sodium nitrate that are in packaged meats is not actually killing the bacteria as a preservative. So most people think that because you use a preservative, it's doing, it's basically killing off bacteria, right? Killing it, keeping it at bay. It's not doing that. So at the time, I'm sure it's probably different now, but the FDA only allowed 5 ppm parts per million, 5 micrograms, depending on the kilogram of body weight. That was the only amount of sodium nitrate that can be used in packaged meats. Well, what our research study found was, in order to effectively inhibit growth or kill the bacteria, you need 100 times that amount. So in other words, the bacteria on the meat is not being inhibited, is not being killed, it's just being held at bay, but it's still present. So when you and I, well, hopefully not us, but depending on which meat you eat, when we consume that packaged or that processed meat, our gut metabolizes that sodium nitrate, meaning it's gone. And so now that bacteria that was being held at bay is now able to grow in our gut, in our intestines, and it changes the composition of our gut microbiome. Well, Brother Malik, that doesn't sound too bad. What happens when your gut microbiome composition changes? You have heart disease, you have IBS, you have IBD, obesity. And if you look at the majority of the communities that consume a lot of packaged or processed meats, which our community is number one, we have a prevalence of these type of diseases. So that research study showed that the sodium nitrate is not in fact doing the job that is being pitched or proposed to do, and it's actually doing harm to our body, especially the more we consume it, right? Because the frequency in which we consume it is important. If you eating a Lunchable for breakfast or a Lunchable for lunch, then you eating a turkey sandwich when you get home, then you eating another one in the morning, because we as a people, we eating about 5-6 times a day. Some of the how to eat to live in there in regards to eating 1 meal a day, getting down to 1 meal a day. So that is the results that came from that 2-year research study. And by Allah's grace, it was very successful. I was blessed to be the primary author on that. However, I had a very, very good research team, including the brother that I mentioned, Brother Warren. Our research won at our university symposium. It's been very, very, very much successful. And that was my first research study that kind of kicked off my path or my drive towards that route. So I was 2017. That's crazy, man. I think I was about 19 or 20. if I'm doing the math right. So that was my first research study, and from there, by Allah's grace, we've been able to keep the ball rolling.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for enlightening us on, that sodium nitrate and how it can affect the body. I'm sure a lot of our audience members can benefit from that. So,
Great.
I want to know, in one word, how would you explain your Islamic journey and why that one word?
One word. How would I explain my Islamic journey? That's a good one. If I had to choose one word, I would say I would use the word improving or evolving, because even as a young member of the Nation of Islam, a nation baby, someone who was born into the teachings, had two parents in the teachings, there is so much that I'm still learning from both of them and from my own studies now as an adult, as a young Muslim. So I'm always focused on improving or evolving myself. By doing that, it makes me a better servant for my people. It makes me a better brother. It makes me a better son. It makes me a better everything. That if you look at what we're asked to do, that can't happen if we're not improving or evolving. If we're stagnant, that's actually a sign of death. It's a sign that we're not making progress. And everything in life has to be progressing towards something. Allah created everything with an aim and a purpose. So in order for us to reach our aim and purpose, since we know that we were born imperfect, we have to constantly be evolving and growing and improving ourselves. So if I had to choose one word, I would say improving / evolving, I guess, if you could make that one word, because that's the summary of the journey: improving and evolving.
Yes, sir. All praises due to Allah. My next question before we go to our station ID, I wanted to ask you, when you're not conducting your research or helping the members of the Waxahachie community, how do you relax and debrief?
It's a good question. So for me, relaxing is anything that I can do, number one, with my family. Reading is a good hobby of mine that I enjoy doing, reading things that are going to be productive. I do enjoy a good novel every now and then, but reading. And lastly, I would say playing basketball that's like a give me. If I'm not reading, if I'm not with my family doing something, if I'm not going door to door with myself or with my brothers or with the brothers, I'll be more than likely playing basketball somewhere, indoor, outdoors, it doesn't matter. So that would be my form of relaxation, because it allows me to prepare mentally for doing what I have to do all over again. So anything that has to do with my family, reading a good book, or going to shoot hoops, I'll be doing one of those three things, or all of those three things, depending on what the day is. So yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And now we'll go to our station ID. You are listening to WHID-FM. We thank you for tuning in and spending your valuable time, because without you, there is no WHID-FM. If you have any suggestions, please email us at WHID1919@gmail.com. And also, please subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Facebook. We are still getting word on our guests for next week. We should announce it before the end of the show. Oh, actually, we just got word. So next week, inshallah, our special guests will be Sisters April and Malik Muhammad, and they will be speaking on the science of cooking, part 1. So you definitely want to tune in for that wonderful episode. And Brother Malik, before I turn it back over to our co-host, Sister Janine, I wanted to ask you, what has Islam done for you?
All praises due to Allah. Islam has provided me the opportunity to fulfill my aim and purpose in various aspects. Number one, Islam provided me with 2 intelligent, loving, caring, wise parents that produced everything that I can point to that someone would probably say makes me successful would not be the case if it were not for those 2. However, I only got those 2 because of the 3 that came before the 2. Master Fard Muhammad, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So because of those three men, and because of my parents dedicating their life, striving to follow the example of the man that they left in our midst, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Islam has given me the best opportunity through its application to grow into, inshallah, the young little God that Allah created me to be. And I want to add to that question about what Islam has done for me, give it a different perspective or viewpoint, if I will. So Islam, as we've heard from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Islam is a way of life. So by itself, Islam already does things for us, right? We were promised money, luxury, good homes, friendships, and all walks of life. Islam, just in accepting the teachings and striving to apply it, we have things, rewards with our Lord. What I like to do myself, personally, Brother West, is I like to ask myself this question. After acknowledging what Islam has done for me, what have I done with my Islam? Islam is going to do great things for those who strive to apply it in the best manner that they can. However, I like to ask myself, what have I done with my Islam? If you look at the scriptures and you look at the prophets and messengers of Allah, they all have works that they can show, not just say, that they can show that proves what they have done with what they have been taught. My father likes to use the parable of the talents, and that's where I adopted this mindset from, right? Islam is like that parable. Islam, when we accept it and strive to apply it, we're going to have talents. We're going to have certain things, certain rewards, certain things that we benefit from just by being a registered member of the Nation of Islam. However, what are we doing with it when we get it? Are we going to be like the one that had the talent, the one talent, and when the Lord returned, he still had one? Or will we be like the other one who multiplied the talent, and God ended up taking the talent from the one who did nothing and giving it to the one who multiplied it the most? So after I think about what Islam has done for me, Brother West, which it has done everything, I like to ask myself that question. And I challenge us, the listening audience, to do the same. What have we done with our Islam? And in doing that, that'll make us reflect on self, push us to work harder. And then when we come to shows like this, or we're just speaking with family, we'll have even more to share about what Islam has done for us. So that would be my response to that. It's done everything, thankfully, because of the two parents that I have. They are phenomenal, the best parents in the world, in my opinion. I know that sounds biased, but it might be a little biased, but I'm also basing it on their works too, just like I just said, best parents in the world. But because of them accepting Islam and striving to follow it how they followed it, Islam has provided me with everything that I need to be that little God that Master Fard Muhammad came to make all of us, not just myself, everybody. So that would be my answer to that question. That was an excellent question.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your wonderful response. And with that, we'll turn it back over to Sister Janine.
Thank you, Brother West. Now, before we go into a audience question that was sent to me, I just want to say, just being, over the years of us doing this show and seeing the different guests and seeing our nation involved and how we're getting into greater and greater things, it makes me so proud. I just had to say it. It was on my heart. It makes me so proud to be a member of the Nation of Islam, because when people ask, why Islam, your testimony, brother, really shows us why Islam. Yes, just the plan that your parents had for their children and how they were going to grow their children in Islam and making an environment, a controlled environment, where they built a force field where the enemy can't penetrate them if they try, because of the seeds that was planted. So I just want to thank your parents for just being amazing examples. And that's something that, I think we can benefit, over the nation, of how to really raise our children in Islam, because it's a skill to be able to raise your children where they don't, wander in Islam. It's really a skill, and I'm thankful for your testimony. I want to get into the question that was sent over to me. 1 second. So the question is, it says, "Assalamu alaikum, sir. Have you had a chance to have a family of your own? If so, how has Islam helped you build a great family for yourself to extend what your parents have done?"
All praise due to Allah. Thank you for that question, whoever that was. Have I had the chance to build a family of my own? I am actively working on the chance. Let me just say that. Here's the beautiful thing about the way in which my parents reared us as children. I've had practice for building my family before they get here. So being able to do things like, just to give an example, when we got of age, meaning, young teenagers, whenever we went somewhere as a family, my father always told the boys, when your sisters go with you, they not paying for nothing. Y'all pay for it. We will make sure that we would do things for our mother and our sisters. So let me just give y'all a breakdown, because I didn't do that, so I apologize. So here's how the 7 children layout goes. There are 5 boys and 2 girls. All right. So anytime that we would go places, the movies, dinner, whatever we would do, the male children, we would pay for our sister. Why did my father have us doing that? Not to spoil the girls, but he was giving us family building practice. When I was about 7 years old, now I promise you, I'm not making this up. My father drove us to restaurants. And the whole reason that he drove us to restaurants was to teach us how to properly open the door for our mother, our sisters, and our wives. I was 7. I'm not making that up. We didn't go to the restaurant to eat. He would demonstrate how to open the door, where you place your foot at to make sure she gets in the door, how you stand, where your arm is at, and we would practice that. We would open the doors for the sisters that came through. And that's how we would practice. So doing small things like that, I've already been preparing and prepared to carry this on with my family. Family meetings, traditions that we built as a family, we already, by Allah's grace, all of the children have had family building, legacy building practice. Now the decision is, when we get that opportunity, when I get that opportunity, do I continue with what I've been taught, or do I try to do my own thing and spin it off because I think I know better? That would be a very unwise move for me personally. And that chastisement from Allah will be so severe, because I just got finished telling you all the blessing and what I've received from Islam through my parents. So shame on me for thinking, because I'm 27 and it's 2024 and they born from a time back then, that I know better. That's a mistake that is easy to make, but it's one that should be avoided at all costs. So to answer that question, I've already been, by Allah's grace and permission and mercy, to have that practice well in advance before they even get here. And that I encourage everybody who's listening, if you have children or planning on having children, take that approach. Why do you have to wait to prepare your children for what you know they have to do of righteousness? Part of that is being married and having a family. Why do you have to wait for that? That's not the mosque or the study group jobs to do. That's my job as the parents. That's not the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's job to do directly. He gave us what we need to be able to take it and apply it where we're at and start creating. So I encourage everybody who is listening, please take that approach, take that mindset. Let's adopt that mindset, and you'll be surprised at how impactful it is in the development, not just of the family building skills, social skills, but also in how your children actually think and see the world. Because my parents had that mindset, it was very little things that could happen to us personally that would not go our way, or we would have to wait, and we not have the mindset of, I don't have to wait for that. I can do that right now. So that would be my answer to that question, dear sister. And that was a beautiful question. Again, thank you to whoever asked. I've already, by Allah's grace, had a lot of practice with that. So inshallah, when that time comes, it's just a matter of kind of, continuing that journey. It's kind of like when you take dual credit, right? The classes you took already, they just kind of pass over depending on which college you're going to. It's the same process, the same mindset. So that would be my answer to that question.
Praise be to Allah. And the next question, let me pull up because it was a text sent to me, the question. All right, it says, Assalamu alaikum. In this world, in the enemy's world we are in now, sometimes it's very unlikely for the father to be working while the woman stays at home while we desire, which is a natural order of God. Let's just a hypothetical. Let's just say you've entered that scenario where it takes more than 2 or 3 incomes to make it work. Do you suggest a balance on how to still represent the same household you have without losing the principles or losing the way of how you were raised?
Excellent question. I'm gonna take a two-pronged response to that question, if I'm understanding it correctly. So, in the instance where it takes 2 or 3 incomes to maintain that family, there's 2 different ways that this can be approached, and I'm going to use again what we're taught, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, to answer this question. As a man, anytime that we allow our wife to do any part of our job, we have to understand that when we make that decision, we have just given her part of our duty, which makes her partially man. That is not her job by nature. So in this scenario, if it took 2 to 3 incomes, this decision is going to be based off of how much I truly believe that statement that we learned from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and how much I love what it is I'm trying to build and the relationship that me and that woman have with Allah. Because if it takes 2 to 3 incomes, I can go get 2 and 3 jobs. That's 2 and 3 income. Or I can downsize where it doesn't take 2 to 3 incomes, but in my downsizing, and here's the thing too, brothers, when we're striving to do this the way that Allah deemed it to be, our communication got to be on point. The planning that you heard me talking about that my father does it and has done forever, that is how you help keep the morale and the principles that this person is asking in this question. You keep them the main thing. You don't just say, sweetheart, we're gonna have to downsize because I'm trying to do this by myself and I don't want you to have to work, so we gonna downsize. And that's it. That is not how that conversation needs to go. Here's how it needs to go. Sweetheart, unfortunately, this has come up, whatever the case may be, and it's going to take 2 to 3 incomes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get a second or a third job. And if I can't do that within the span of 3 months, then we're going to have to downsize to this many square feet. However, because I'll be saving, we'll only be there for 6 months, 8 months, and then from there, we can get a little bit bigger. That's how that goes. But in order to do that, you have to have that kind of mind. And in order to have that kind of mind, you have to be standing on those 5 principles of Islam. And it has to be, as my father says, past your throat. It has to be in your heart, in our heart as men. We can make that happen. Again, if we believe that we can overcome all things through Christ, which strengthening us, if we believe that the black man is God, we should exhaust all areas and resources that we have as men before we let that woman do 50% of our job. And if it comes to that, where the woman has to do 50% of our job, we have to be working feverishly to get her off of that. That should not be something that happens or it just becomes the norm now because of it's 2024. So last time that I checked, Master Fard Muhammad is the best of planners. God is the best of planners. So you mean to tell me that us with this teaching and this wisdom, we can't plan to get our wives off of that job where she can be 100% the woman that she wants to be? I don't know how that exists with this teaching that we got. So I hope that the brothers that may be watching this show, listening to my voice, I have not said anything that has not already been said by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as taught to him by the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, as taught to him by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's our job as men, brothers. Let's get on our job and do what we got to do. Let's do it. I know it's hard work. I know it takes a lot. But the reason why I can have this spirit, the reason why I can deliver those words with that kind of spirit and drive is because, again, I watch a man do what I just said with 7 children and a wife. So it's going to be so hard for you to tell me that it can't be done. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to hurt nobody's feelings, but I don't apologize for what I said either. I meant that because that comes from what we're taught. And I watched a man do it. So there's no for that question. Depends on the brother, depends on the sister, depends on their relationship with Allah. But that man should exhaust all of his resources, exhaust every plan possible that he can come up with before he lets that woman know, baby, sweetheart, I'm gonna need your help. And if it comes to that, there should already be a plan in place where she knows to the date almost when she is going to be coming off that job and that man will be fully taking over his duty and his responsibilities. She should not be doing that for the rest of your relationship and your life. That there is no money dollar amount that you can put on having a 100% woman. You can't do that. You cannot do that. So that would be my response to that question. We have to apply what we're taught and exhaust all our options because we got what we need. We already have the answer. So that would be
praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah. And we're down to the last, well, I don't want to say last 2 questions. One of them is really a statement, but it is a question that I have as well. Yes, somebody asked, when are your parents coming on? So we're gonna have to make that
yeah, please, yes.
Because I mean, just hearing this testimony, I have got to meet these 2 people.
Yes,
so
ma'am. Yes,
you know, inshallah, we'll definitely get them on the show.
Yes, ma'am.
And one final question that was sent over is quite interesting, but I'll ask it anyway. It says, sir, but what if the woman has no children? I'm doing all the work and she's at home. What do you think about that?
That's a great question. So if the woman has no children and she's at home and the man is out doing all the work, first of all, the way that the question was worded, I'm doing all the work, that may very well be true. You're doing all of the work that you're supposed to be doing according to your role as a man. But while that woman at home with no children, she got work to do too.
That's right.
That depends on the quality of woman you have. If you have a woman who is striving to improve herself the same way that we all should be striving to improve ourselves, she got all the time in the world to be doing that. And as the man, if you understand that, and hold up, check this out. Help her to create a plan to do that. Y'all are both working. You're working to provide, maintain, and bring in what needs to be brought in for you all to have whatever lifestyle that you have. And she's working on being a better wife, being a better potential mother, being a better sister, being a better everything that's going to bring you, the man, peace, number one, and number two, the environment for when them children do get here. Oh, you better believe mama is on it. But see, our problem as men, and I'm not saying that this was whoever asked this question's perspective.
Right.
We think that because we're going and clocking into a physical job, that the work that I just described doesn't count. If that is your mindset, brothers, I highly encourage you to listen to the lectures from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan speaking on the role and the power of that woman. That woman is equivalent to the soil that I talked about earlier. If that soil, if that woman is not going to be conducive to generating a quality of seed, a crop that will allow for you as the man to be able to create something for them to walk into, and they take it further, that's a problem. Does that mean that the woman is a bad woman? No, that's not what that means. It just means that you have chosen to associate yourself with someone who is not going to produce a certain quality of seed, a certain quality of child, a certain quality of an environment. Now, let me back up a little bit. This is why we're taught as men, until you know what you want to do and have a plan for it, leave her alone. Because if you don't know what you want, that kind of mindset could have you feeling a certain type of way. So my question to you, not just the brother whoever asked the question, but just to us in general as men, what do we want to do? What quality of lifestyle do we want in the household? I'm not talking about cars and money and houses. I'm not talking about that yet. I'm talking about the operation of the household. What do we want? Write all of that down. What quality of children do you want? When you have that down, I want you to look at that and equate that to a certain quality of woman. That quality of woman needs an environment to be that. If you put her in this devil's environment, this world's environment, as we can see on social media, on the news, on everything, that is going to be, you're going to have less opportunity to produce what it is you want, if that's truly what you want. So to the person who asked the question, no, if the sister is working on herself, if she's actively applying and practicing her 7 units, if she's an MGT, or applying the things that will make her a better helpmeet if she's not an MGT, which there's really no such thing, but that's work. So please, brothers, let's strive to lose this mindset of, because I'm going to a physical building to work, my work is more important. That's not the case. We're taught that 75% of the work is with the woman.
That's right.
That means that while she's at home working on herself, guess what, brother? In addition to doing what you're doing, you got to come home and work with her too. But she got her job to play, though. She got a role to play, and she ain't relying on you now. You working with her. So that would be my answer to that question. If the sister doesn't have children, she should be maximizing that opportunity at home to be she should be super MGT everything. If she's MGT, that should be what she's doing, and you should be happy that she has the opportunity to do that. So yeah, that would be my response to that question.
Oh, praise be to Allah. But sir, we definitely thank you. It's definitely been a pleasure having you on, and I know our audience has been buzzing and they love just your testimony and your response to the question. So we definitely thank you for that. For those who are asking, someone put it in the chat that the lectures, it's multiple ones, but some of the lectures that you were referring to is in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan Respect for Life series on male-female relationships. He actually did lectures on the role of the man and the woman as well. So you can look those up on YouTube, or you can go to finalcall.com and pull those up as well to get those lectures. Family, we just have a few announcements before we begin to wrap up tonight. If you like what you heard, and I'm sure you did, and you want to know more about the Nation of Islam, please go online to www.noi.org/school-study. If you're interested in joining the Nation of Islam, go to www.noi.org/join. We have weekly webcasts every Sunday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time or 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can look at all the previous weekly sessions we've had. There's so many videos, so much knowledge that you can have. Also, you can go to one of your local mosques or study groups within your city. If you don't know where it is, again, go to www.noi.org or call headquarters at 773-324-6000. Final Call Radio, download it on all of your devices. Take it with you on the go. In this day and time, we shouldn't be too much on, listening to the radio. We need to be listening to Final Call Radio, because if you want to stay tuned in, stay locked in on what's going on in the world and how to move past it, listen to Final Call Radio. And also with that, the Final Call newspaper, you can get it from one of the brothers out in the street, or you can go to finalcall.com. It's a reason why we call that paper the #1 minister in our paper, because if you ever want to know what's truly going on, don't listen to the main media. Listen to the media that's going to tell you the truth about the time and what must be done. And last but not least, do you want a book that greatly empowers your precious children and showcases their self-worth? Look no further than I Never Knew I'm All That, Book 1. This highly recommended book from WHID will provide the reassurance and affirmation for your child's needs, investing in your child's confidence and self-love with this must-read book, available now on Amazon.com. I Never Knew I'm All That, Book 1, written by our host, Brother Donald Muhammad, illustrations by Sister Amina Lay. So with that, we'll turn it over to our host, Brother Donald Muhammad, who will lead us into our Muhammad moment, and then we will close out. Brother Donald?
All praises due to Allah. Thank you, Sister Janine. Brother Malik, man, Malik, I'm so excited knowing that we have young people like you coming up behind us to keep our nation alive. It will never fall again. It will never die. Thank you over and over again. And I will do my best to make contact with your parents. If you could kind of prompt that effort, that would be a blessing for us. And of course, this fantastic WHID-FM team, Brother Wesley, Sis Janine, Brother West, you do a phenomenal job. And we have a new addition. I like to call her our field correspondent, Sister Latifa Muhammad. You'll be hearing more from her in the near future. And of course, I'm the seen, but the unseen is my wife, my best friend forever, Sister Cynthia Muhammad, the unseen force, which is more important than the seen force. So we thank you all. We thank our listening audience. And of course, we have to round that out by saying that were it not for God coming in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, raising up the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, the first begotten of the dead. And though those two are not here, there is one here, the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Messiah, the Jesus. And without him, there will be no WHID-FM and no Brother Donald Muhammad. So we thank you all and we love you all. May Allah continue to bless you. And with that, Brother Wesley, please take us into our Muhammad moment.
Yes, sir. Today's Muhammad moment is brought to us by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. The lecture entitled, Only God Can Make Man. This was delivered on November the 20th, 1991. And you can find this lecture at store.finalcall.com to enjoy and continue to feed on. So let's enjoy today's Muhammad's moment.
Man, this white man has created a world. His world is moving so fast, it creates a force that inclines everyone in his world to his world. It's hard to break out. Just like gravity is a force created by the motion of the earth. In order to get out of the pull of gravity, you got to have a rocket projecting you up out of gravity. And you got to have a heat shield, because when you reach the ceiling of gravity, it's fire coming out and more fire coming back in if you fall back. So it is when you reach the ceiling of gravity, when you're coming up out of the white man's world. When you get up, you got to have a rocket to get you out of his world. You can't just lullaby out. And this teaching from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is like a rocket, brother. When he lights that teaching up under you, man, you were dead yesterday, you pop straight up. You out there now, brother. Your rocket is charged. You heading toward the ceiling of gravity. Now that's a dangerous place. Because see, the Bible tells you you're going to meet the devil in the air. not under the ground, the prince of the power of the air. See, white folk ain't down there. They got their little cheap fellas down there working with you because you ain't got up yet. But when you get up, get your wings and get up. When you get to a certain height, you got to meet him because he's there and he's pure fire. But when you got your stuff, you put on the whole armor of God. You got your helmet on. You got your breastplate of salvation. You got your foot shod with the shoes of the gospel. You got the sword of truth. You ready, you dealing now. And you get up to the ceiling of gravity, here comes Satan. But he can't stand, you can. You got him beat. You get on through his fire. And that's the way it is. When you start rising, you start dealing first with your mother, your father, your friends. You come into a knowledge that your mom don't know, your daddy don't know. Maybe your preacher didn't know. Then they get shook up when you share it with them. And then they say, oh no, can't be right. Then your family start beating you down. You got to have your wings, man. You got to have your rocket strong, brother. Huh? Now you're rolling. But you got to get past mama. You got to get past daddy. Mama said, boy, you done down there with that Farrakhan? You done gone crazy. If you don't get away from that man, don't you... And then you get weak in your knees, you know what I mean? Oh, Ma, all right, Ma, I ain't going there no more. Well, you just punked out. Your rocket went out. You fizzled out, fell on back to the earth. You laid there like a Scud missile. Spent. He shot his Patriot up and got you. You ain't gonna meet the real devil. You ain't got high enough yet. You got to get past your friends. Hey, man, what's this? You cleaning up? Hey, man. What's wrong with you? You don't want to light up, man? I got the pipe. I got the pipe. You don't want no reefer no more? What's wrong with you, girl? See, you got to get past that. See, you put on a righteous garment, somebody mock you. What is that, my Aunt Jemima clothes you got on, baby? What is that you got on your head? They start laughing at you. See, and then you can't take it. Next thing you know, you back in your tight jeans again. Hey, now baby, you got some sense. Right back where you wanted to be. And fell right back down. For what? You ain't got your rocket ready. Man, when I came up, I went to my mother. I said, Mom, you taught me all my life. I want you to be quiet and listen to me. She was laying in the bed. I sat by the bed. I said, Mom, you just listen to me for a minute now. And I taught her. For about an hour and a half, I ran John Hawkins' history down to her. Opened up the Bible and went to showing her what I had learned. I said, what you think, Ma? She said, sounds pretty good, son. I'll have to check it out. I said, well, that's all right. She didn't fight me, but if she had, she know I'm that kind of son that I don't care what you do. Once I got my mind made up on something, you have to have something to get me because I'm going straight ahead.
All right, with that, we'll close in prayer, attention prayer. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Malik Muhammad Jr. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Assalamu alaikum, family.
I want you to understand and know the time. It's time that we are accepted and respected by both man and mankind. You know, the scripture says that God would choose those that are despised and rejected. And we have been